So on the agenda is the 5-year forecast for our May update, starting with this fiscal year and ending in fiscal year 2025. So, the question I've been hearing is why the update? Why did you put out so many forecasts? And, two are required. One was an extra one because of the changes due to the stimulus. And another one was just putting in the estimated revenue from the levy had it passed. So I want to make sure people understand that we're not just constantly issuing 5-year forecast as small items change. So outside of the two that were required, we only really board approved and submitted one additional forecast for this fiscal year. So again, we're required to do it in November and May. Required to do it in November and May, and this is the May update. So it's only been a few months, but why has it changed? Well, in May, we typically have all of our real estate tax collections. And this year they came in about $42,000 higher. And some may say, well, that's significant. But when you look at just the real estate tax, that's about 0.4%. So that's pretty close, especially in a year where we expected the levy or the real estate tax collections to be a little lower due to the pandemic. I adjusted it for the return of the advances at the end of the fiscal year in 2020. We advanced out about 132,000 to other funds to make them positive by the end of the year. And then during the next fiscal year, they return those advances. Well, I did that during April. So we've adjusted that to actual. We have reduced the wages. We have 3 teachers who are not being replaced. They are either resigning or retiring, and we're not replacing them. And then we are also increasing our wages for all years of the forecast by 1 special education teacher and 2 special education aides for just next year, because those seem to move in and out on a more frequent basis. And that's required because of the student ratio mandates. And I don't know, Angela, do you want to say something about that?
Yes, we have all year been watching our numbers and have tried to absorb a retirement from September. And we're at a point in looking at those numbers where we just cannot meet the ratios anymore. So we will have to add an additional special education teacher over and above the staffing that we already have in place. And then, as Mike said, we get one-to-one needs from time to time. And while we hope that, it's not a permanent solution, that's why we're figuring on those 2 aides for next year, just for the year. But, it could be an ongoing reoccurring cost. It just depends on the progress of the students involved.
Thank you. And then the benefits have been reduced by those 3 teachers not being replaced. After the February forecast was created, the healthcare consortium that we're a member of granted all member districts a 1-month premium freeze because their expenses were down quite a bit, because as the pandemic hit, nobody went to the doctor. So we pay our premiums based on claims. And since claims were lower, we've got a 1-month premium holiday that we're going to take in June of 2021. And then because we're also changing the effective year of the plans from July to June, we're changing them to January to December. The consortium has also decided to put off any increase in premiums to the member districts until January 1st. So I've slightly reduced the effect on the fiscal year for that delay in premiums. So what hasn't changed? Real estate tax revenue, because that seemed to be the big misinformation that was out there. Okay, except for that small adjustment I talked about earlier. State aid, which was out there that we're getting more money, and I'm going to explain why it's not included, and any effects of the ARP or ESSER 3, as we more commonly refer to it, and I'll talk about why. So real estate tax. There was a lot of talk about this Madison Industrial Park going in at 528.90. There's going to be a Sheetz going in, there's going to be a Love's going in, and Great Lakes Power is relocating from Mentor to Madison. And it was Sunday, and I wonder what the actual effect of those are going to be. Well, let's look at Sheetz first. So I looked at the last two sheets that I knew that were built. Willoughby's is probably the most recent, but when I looked on the auditor's, Lake County Auditor's website, it was still listed, I think, as Eaton Park. So I used the value for sheets that were built in Mentor and Perry. Both were similar, but Mentor was a little bit higher, so I used the value at 1.1 million. Taxable value is 35% of that. Now, remember, everything in that area becomes 75% tax abated, and that's where people were missing how much impact we were actually going to get. So the non-abated value, tax value, is $96,000. Our operational millage is 29 mils and change. So from that property in a full year, we're going to get about $2,851. Love's, I don't remember whether Love's is going in where Pizza Roto is or Sheets, so I just put Love's there. Love's, I use the same value because they're similar type truck stops. Praise value of 1.1. The value already there is 131,000. So now we're talking about the increase in the abatement is on the increase in value, and we're already collecting money on the value that's there. So the increase is 877,000. The taxable value, which is 35% of that, is 306,000. Non-abated, which is 25%, is $76,000. Operational millage means we're going to get $2,273 a year from that property. And then finally, Great Lakes Power, their current appraisal is 1.6 million. I figured they're moving out. They're going to spend more money. So let's say 2 million. Taxable value is 35%, not abated value. 25% of that is 175 grand. Apply the millage. So the additional tax on that is $5,184. Now, Mike, you might be, well, let's talk about timing, because at first it was out there that we were going to get all this money next year. Well, that's not possible. Nothing was built by January 1st of 21. To collect money in calendar year 22, they look back at the value that's on the books as of January 1st of the prior year. So January 1st of 2021. So for us to get money in calendar year 2023, 2 years from now, it has to be finished by the end of this calendar year, or at least 50% finished. And I had conversations with the auditor that if it's at least 50% finished, he'll put some value on, which is typical. That's what auditors do. So if it's finished by the end of this year, we'll get about half of that money in fiscal year 2023, $5 grand. And then in fiscal year 2024, which comprises the second half of calendar year 2023 and the first half of calendar year 2024, we'll get all $10,000. What's that mean to us? That is a 0.05% increase in our real estate tax revenue in fiscal year 23. And fiscal year 24, it's not even 1/10 of 1%. Keep in mind, construction hasn't started yet. The longer it takes for construction to start, the more likely it is we won't see any money in 2023. So you're saying, Mike, you're crazy, your values are too low. All right, 10 million bucks added to those three corners. Taxable value is 3.5 million. Taxable value after abatements, 875,000. We get $25,000, $26,000. So clearly, this isn't the windfall that everybody thinks it's going to be, because it is so heavily abated. And it's abated for 15 years. So the millions that we're being told we're going to get just aren't there. So the other part that was out there is we're going to get money from the revaluation. You know, all our property taxes are going to go up, and that, again, for a majority of your tax associated with the school, that's just not true. The part that will go up is there's something called inside millage, which is 4.85 mils for Madison schools, which is 4.85 of the 29.62. If that goes up, then we will recognize some additional revenue. A 5% increase in values across the district will net this district $87,000. Okay. When I show you the ending balance, we're $10 million in the hole. $87,000 a year doesn't get us out of it. And then, you know, we're going to end up doing another forecast for the year starting fiscal year 2022 in September, October, November of next year. We might have a better idea of district wide what the property values go up. If we do, we will certainly include it in there. My forecast this year and always has new construction in it. So we've always had new construction, and that was another falsehood out there. State aid. So, we've been told all this money's coming our way. The governor put in student wellness success funds. He actually increased it. The House removed that and started funding the Fair School Funding Plan, which resulted in a much lesser increase. And then the Senate said, you know what, we're going to do what we're going to do. And the latest is they're going to increase vouchers, which would only hurt this district. So again, there's no increase in the state budget because we have zero idea of how it's going to affect Madison. What they're doing statewide doesn't matter if it doesn't trickle down to Madison. So again, as soon as we know what it is, it'll be included in a forecast. And then the ARP, the ESSER 3 funds, the initial guidance was issued on May 6th. There's been talk about how to spend it, but the initial guidance, which is 60 some pages long, was issued May 6th. Planning has to take place, and we've talked ad nauseum about how these funds are going to help the district, but really aren't going to help the general fund, which is the 5-year forecast. So difference between the two, because of those cuts we made and the changes in health insurance and the little other adjustments we made, both positive and negative, we've got an ending balance of $166,000 on a $29 million budget. That's, to give you an idea, that would be about a quarter of a payroll, and our payroll's every 2 weeks. So that took it to at least a positive balance so we can, start the year with appropriations. 23 went down about $1.1 million. Again, that's the cumulative effect of not only the cuts being carried out 4 years, but some of the, the lesser health insurance between now and the end of the forecast. But if you look in 2025, we're still 10 million in the hole. So clearly all this fantasy revenue that's being talked about, just when you look at the numbers, just isn't true. And, that was the battle that Sean was talking about. We couldn't keep up with the misinformation that was out there. So going forward, I don't know how we do this other than every time we're able to talk, we just talk about the facts. So